Hello peeps, I let my recent community post marinate a little bit, and this community post was on a video idea. This is an idea I've had for about a year now. Yeah, it's been a decently long time. But the reason I've held off on actually making a video for it is because I thought I'd attract some people who simply care more about tribalism instead of actually having like a genuine real conversation and discussion about said topic. However, now I think is a really good time to talk about this because of Wuwa kind of going crazy with its endgame lately, right? Wuwa added double pawns matrix. Not only that, they also did a significant amount of Wuwa HP inflation mid 2.x. Then on top of this, they also did a rework to TOA to add two new floors in the middle, and they've also been adding some decent HP inflation to it, and the next Wuwa reset in this version will also have 20% plus HP inflation, right? The reason I want to talk about this is because HP inflation is becoming a bit of a bigger topic with all this stuff being introduced into Wuwa Endgame as of late, and I want to explain to people why it is that Wuwa characters scale so much worse when there's significant levels of HP inflation as compared to something like HSR characters. Right. Now, this isn't to enable tribalism, it isn't to say one is better than the other. I will simply be using HSR as a reference here so you guys can kind of understand why it is that Wuwa makes their characters in the endgame the way they do, and why it is HSR does what they do when it comes to their endgame. Right. So, let's get straight into it. So, we are going to be using HSR as a reference here. What's the difference between these two? Well, the main difference is that HSR's insane power creep actually ends up being a good thing to combat its insane levels of HP inflation, right? HSR puts an insane amount of power budget into its characters, while Wuwa does the opposite. In my opinion, they release their characters to be pretty weak and restrictive at base. However, they compensate for it by, well, maybe not recently, but usually not doing anywhere near as much HP inflation or endgame difficulty increase, right? I think the best way I could put it to make as simple of a picture as possible is that if Wuwa characters had HSR levels of power budget, right, Wuwa characters would dead ass last a decade in terms of clearing the endgame. Okay, like they would last insanely long, because in HSR there are many cases where like a newly released character with free-to-play supports, no signature, can just zero cycle their endgame content. Now, for my non-HSR players, my non-HSR viewers, this is clearing within about a fifth of the allotted time that you are given on average in MOC, right? So a fifth, that is incredibly goddamn impressive. For reference, against Wuwa's last TOA and its floor 4, the fastest time by a speedrunner, you can check this yourself on the Wuwa Flex website, with a full premium Galbrena team that is getting fully shielded, and it's like a top 0.1% player using insane levels of quick swap, they cleared that floor 4 in about a minute, right? Which is, you have 2.5 minutes to get enough stars to clear that enemy, which means they're using about like 35 to 40% of the allotted time, right? Which is obviously taking up more time as compared to the HSR character. But once again, this is a full premium team that is getting fully shielded in the endgame, and on top of this, they also have like a top 0.0001% player actually handling them who did a bajillion resets, right? These HSR characters, the ones I'm mentioning here that are zero cycling with one cost, are not only clearing faster, but clearing without any of their premium teammates or their signature weapon, right? Does this mean that HSR is way more player friendly when it comes to the endgame? No. HSR combats their own power creep by, matching it with insane levels of HP inflation and sometimes as well as endgame shilling, right? However, for anyone curious why it is that people always talk about HSR HP inflation being incredibly gross, yet older characters still clear without even having insane investment, it's because characters when they are originally released are genuinely just way too fucking broken for the game, right? They are released insanely broken. It's like dropping, you know that meme of like coughing bomb versus, or sorry, coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb? The coughing baby is the end game in HSR, and then the hydrogen bomb is the newly released character. They just scale way too fucking high, right? So this is why Wuwa characters scale so much worse from HP inflation, but even with this being the case, they usually have some decent longevity to them. Wuwa makes up for this by obviously doing significantly less HP inflation, and that's why when people bring up HP inflation comparisons between Wuwa and let's say HSR most commonly in this space to push tribalism, it just doesn't work, right? Because these games put different power budgets into their characters and structure their endgames differently to have like varying difficulty, right? Please, no tribalism in my comments. This isn't about Wuwa versus HSR. This is simply to bring light to why Wuwa characters scale so much worse than HP inflation, and the difference, right? Like how different would it be? Keep in mind, if we were to put like Wuwa, with HSR levels of HP inflation, but didn't increase their power budget, current TOA, you could argue, is like a little over twice as strong, maybe even 3 times as strong, but in my opinion, that's a stretch as compared to when it first launched. Given the same time period, right, translate it to the amount of HP inflation we got in HSR's MOC, it would be like 6x, 7x HP inflation in this game's TOA instead of the current a little over 2x or 3x. And I imagine that if you're a Wuwa viewer watching this, imagine dealing with a TOA that is more than twice as difficult as compared to the current one, right? Across all the board. Like, let's say it's 2.5x as difficult, right? Just how bad would that feel using some older characters? To be honest, that would filter already like 98-99% of the player base from being able to clear at all without having incredibly strong premium teams and also having an idea of what they're doing. That's the difference between these games and why Wuwa characters scale so much worse. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Please, no tribalism, I'm begging, right? I know I make Hoyo content, I know I make Wuwa content, but man, sometimes I just wish, at least a majority of the people on my channel could get along, because the tribalism stuff, it's getting old, man. It really gets old, and as I get older, I also get more sick of it, because it's so common among my Wuwa viewer base to think I'm a Hoyo shill. I need people to understand, I play Hoyo games the least compared to Wuwa and Bleach Soul Resonance and Where Winds Meet, right? I am playing Hoyo games the absolute least as compared to all of these games for like the last quarter of a year, right? So I have no reason to defend this company. I have no reason to do this and that and shill for it. I'm a leaks content creator, so I can't even get sponsored from Glazing. I simply try to give my opinion here and there, right? Let me know what you guys think about my thoughts down in the comments. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night, and peace out.